I caught my wife in bed with my boss, but that was just the beginning. Within 24 hours, I was running for my life from people I didn't even know existed. I'm honestly not sure how to begin this because it still doesn't feel real. I guess the only place to start is at the beginning. My name's Tyler and I was married to Rachel for 7 years. We never had any kids. Rachel always said she wasn't ready, and looking back now, maybe that was an early sign I just didn't catch. At the time, I was too caught up in my career to think much about it. I work in corporate sales, which means I'm on the road a lot. Airports, hotels, late nights alone in unfamiliar cities. Lately, it felt like I was spending more time in transit than in my own home. And Rachel, she wasn't the same anymore. Over the last few months, something shifted. She seemed far away, like there was this invisible wall between us. She used to be the kind of person who'd text me good morning or send me a photo of her lunch just because, but lately I'd go entire trips without hearing a word. Silence filled the spaces where affection used to be. I tried to chalk it up to stress. Her job had gotten more intense and I figured maybe she was just drained. But in my gut, I knew. You ever get that sinking feeling that someone's slipping away from you, even if you don't have proof? That was me. But I didn't act on it. I brushed off the late nights, the vague explanations about after-work drinks or sudden meetings. I told myself it was all normal. Because when you're married, you believe in trust. You hold on to it even when things don't add up. And then, everything fell apart. I still can't wrap my head around everything that's happened. Honestly, I don't even know how to start this because part of me is still stuck in that first moment of disbelief. But maybe the best place to begin is just at the start. My name's Tyler, and for the past 7 years, I was married to a woman named Rachel. We never had children. She always said she wasn't quite ready for that step, and thinking back now, maybe that was a red flag I chose not to see. I was too consumed with work to really question it. My job in corporate sales keeps me on the move constantly: planes, hotel lobbies, rented cars. For a while, it felt like I was living more out of a suitcase than in my own house. And Rachel, she started changing. It wasn't sudden. It crept in quietly. She grew distant, almost emotionally numb. There was a time when she'd blow up my phone while I was away, silly memes, miss you, texts, voice notes just to hear my voice. But in the last few months, days would go by with nothing. Just silence, like I didn't even exist on her radar anymore. I chalked it up to pressure from her job. Things had gotten busier for her too, so I told myself she was just overwhelmed. But deep down I could feel something wasn't right. You know that gut feeling when someone close to you starts slipping away? No big fight, no explanation, just this slow drift. I felt it every time I came home to her distracted eyes or heard the vague tone in her voice when she explained another late night. Still, I didn't question her. I let the sketchy excuses slide, those supposed happy hours and endless work meetings. Because when you love someone, you give them the benefit of the doubt. You trust them even when the pieces stop fitting together. But then, everything unraveled. It all came crashing down around me. There's no way to really explain what it's like when your whole world caves in. It's not loud or dramatic at first. It's quiet, slow, like time itself is mocking you. You're standing there, helpless, watching everything you thought was solid start to crumble. That's exactly how it felt when I walked through the door and saw them. Rachel was straddling him, completely lost in the moment. They didn't even notice me at first. They were so tangled up in each other that my presence didn't exist. I just stood there. I don't know for how long. It felt like an eternity. I couldn't move, couldn't think. My body shut down. It was like my brain refused to believe what my eyes were seeing. Every instinct in me wanted to shout, to throw something, to lash out and make them feel an ounce of the pain that was tearing through me. But instead I just stared. And then, she looked up. The second Rachel saw me, everything shifted. Her expression changed instantly. It was a mix of horror, shame, and sheer panic. Like a mask had slipped off her face and she couldn't hide anymore. She jumped off him in a hurry, pulling the blanket over herself like that could somehow undo the moment. And him, Ethan, my boss of all people, he looked like a kid who got caught red-handed. He didn't say a word. Just scrambled around like an idiot, trying to shove his legs into his pants, as if he'd somehow explain this away. Tyler. Rachel began, her voice shaking, but I didn't hear the rest. My head was ringing like a fire alarm, and my vision felt like it was underwater. I wasn't even in my own body anymore. I was just watching it all from somewhere far off, like I was stuck in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I couldn't bring myself to speak. What do you even say when you walk into your own bedroom and find your wife with your boss? There are no words for that. So I did the only thing I could. I turned around. Walked out of the room, down the stairs, and out of the house. I didn't even look back. I honestly couldn't tell you where I ended up after walking out that door. My legs just kept moving, carrying me down the street while my mind stayed trapped in that bedroom, watching the same gut-wrenching scene play over and over again. Every step felt heavier, like I was walking through wet cement. The numbness started to wear off, and what came flooding in was a storm of emotion. Rage, shame, heartbreak, confusion. But mostly it was anger that took over. My hands were trembling. I had my fists so tight I could feel my nails digging into my palms. Every fiber in me wanted to go back, to burst through that door and let all of it out. Every word, every bit of pain, every ounce of betrayal. How could they? How could she? But if I'm being honest, some of that fury was turned inward. I kept asking myself how I didn't see it sooner. The signs were there, her coming home late, the emotional distance, the generic excuses. Was I really that oblivious? Or was I just too scared to admit what deep down I already knew? Eventually, I ended up back in my car. I sat there behind the wheel, staring straight ahead, like maybe if I looked long enough, something would start to make sense. My head was spinning, but I couldn't organize a single thought. Every time I blinked, I saw them. That image felt tattooed onto my brain. Then my phone started buzzing. It was Rachel. Of course it was her. I let it ring. Then the messages started popping up one after another. Tyler, I'm so sorry. Please come back, we need to talk. It's not what it looks like. Like any of that could possibly make a difference. I tossed the phone onto the seat beside me and just started driving. I didn't know where I was headed. I just knew I had to get as far away from that house, and from her, as I could. I drove aimlessly for what felt like hours, not even sure where I was going. The road blurred past me, and my thoughts were a mess, one long jumbled loop of disbelief and fury. It wasn't until I found myself parked in an empty lot on the edge of town that I finally stopped. The lot was quiet, surrounded by nothing but dim streetlights and silence. I sat there, gripping the steering wheel, my whole body trembling. I didn't know what to do with the anger pulsing through me. Then my phone buzzed again. But this time it wasn't Rachel. It was Ethan, my boss. I stared at his name lighting up the screen, stunned that he even had the audacity to reach out. Every part of me wanted to toss the phone out the window, but deep down, I knew he wasn't going to stop until I picked up. So I answered. Before I could even say a word, he started in with some pathetic apology, his voice shaky and awkward. Tyler, man, I'm really sorry. This wasn't how it was supposed to happen. I never meant. I cut him off right there. Not how it was supposed to happen. You're sleeping with my wife, Ethan. What exactly did you think the outcome was gonna be? He stumbled over his words, fumbling through some excuse about how it just happened, and they never planned for things to go this far. Every sentence he spit out just added fuel to the fire inside me. I didn't need his explanations. I needed answers. How long, Ethan? I asked, trying to hold my voice steady. How long has this been going on? Silence. That pause told me everything. He didn't want to say it because he knew once he did, it was real. I asked again, louder this time. How long? Finally, he muttered, a few months, since the last company trip. I felt sick. I was about to hang up, just to end it, but then he said something that made my blood run cold. Tyler, she's pregnant. My whole body tensed. What? She's pregnant, he repeated, barely audible now. And she said the baby might be mine. My foot slammed down on the brake, even though the car was already parked. The air seemed to vanish from the cab. Pregnant? Rachel was pregnant? That word echoed in my head. We talked about kids before. Well, I tried. But she always brushed it off, said she wasn't ready, said it wasn't something she saw for us yet. And now, after all this, now she was pregnant? And there was a chance the baby wasn't even mine? I couldn't breathe. My chest was tight and I felt like I'd been punched straight through the heart. Ethan kept talking, but I couldn't hear him anymore. My thoughts were too loud. She had told me she wasn't ready. Meanwhile, behind my back, she was building a future with someone else. A future that might include a child. I ended the call without saying another word. And then I just sat there, frozen, staring out into the dark. Trying to understand how everything I thought I knew had come crashing down in a single night. I just sat there, motionless, my thoughts spinning out of control. Pregnant. She was pregnant. And not even sure who the father was. That word kept bouncing around inside my head like a hammer to the skull. It felt like a sick joke the universe was playing on me, like I was stuck in some twisted version of my own life. I tried to breathe, tried to calm the storm in my chest, but nothing helped. My hands were shaking, my whole body tense. And then my phone lit up again. A new text. This time it was from Rachel. Every part of me wanted to ignore it, to throw the phone into the back seat and leave it all behind. But curiosity, or maybe that last sliver of hope, made me look. My thumb hovered for a second, and then I opened the message. Tyler, there's something you don't know. Please come home. I'll explain everything. I'm so sorry. But it's not just Ethan. It's bigger than that. Much bigger. Please come home. You deserve to know the truth. I felt the blood drain from my face. Not just Ethan? What was she trying to say? I already felt like I'd taken more hits than I could stand, and now she was telling me this wasn't even the full story? That there was something bigger? I didn't even know how to process it. My heart started racing in a different way, not just from the betrayal, not just from the hurt. This was fear. Cold, unfamiliar fear that wrapped around my chest and wouldn't let go. I shouldn't have gone back. I knew that. But something about the way she said it, you deserve to know the truth. It hit me. I had to know. I couldn't live with another mystery hanging over my head. So I turned the key in the ignition and headed back home. When I pulled into the driveway, the place looked lifeless. Only one light was on, glowing faintly in the living room. I walked up to the door, each step heavier than the last. My heart was thudding so loud I could hear it in my ears. I opened the door slowly. She was sitting there on the couch, holding a glass of wine like it was the only thing keeping her grounded. Her eyes were red, her face pale. She looked smaller somehow. Not like the woman I knew. There was something in her expression, something that didn't belong to someone guilty of just an affair. It was deeper. It was fear. Tyler, she said softly, her voice shaky. I've been keeping things from you for a long time, and not just about Ethan. I stood just inside the doorway, silent, waiting. She placed the glass on the table with trembling fingers and took a long breath. There's someone else. Someone you don't know about. And this isn't just about me anymore. You need to understand, we're not safe. I felt a chill crawl across my back. What are you talking about? I asked. My voice barely made it out. She looked me in the eye and I saw real terror there. It's not just an affair, Tyler. It's bigger than that. I think someone's been watching us. For a while. And I think they're in the house right now. My blood turned to ice. Who's watching us? Rachel, what the hell are you saying? And then, we both heard it. The faint, unmistakable sound of a floorboard creaking from upstairs. That sound, a single sharp creak, cut through the silence like a crack of thunder. My entire body stiffened on instinct. Rachel didn't even blink. She just stared at me, her eyes wide, and for the first time since all this started, I saw something I hadn't seen before. Real fear. The kind that doesn't come from guilt. The kind that comes from knowing something you can't control is about to happen. What's going on, Rachel? I asked, my voice barely holding together. She shook her head slowly like she didn't know how to say it. Tears began building again, catching the light. I never meant for it to go this far, she whispered. I thought I could handle it. I thought I was the one in control, but I'm not. They are. And now, they're here. My heart was hammering in my chest. Every nerve in my body was on edge. Who? I asked, keeping my voice low like I was afraid of being overheard. Who's here? What have you done? She wiped her face with a shaking hand, unable to meet my eyes. It didn't just start with Ethan. There's someone else. Someone much worse. I didn't realize what I was getting involved with until it was too late. He knows everything, Tyler. About us. About the house. About you. She stopped talking and just then we heard another sound. Not just a creak this time. Footsteps. Slow, heavy, deliberate steps above us, moving across the floor of our bedroom. I felt a jolt of panic surge through me. Rachel, I whispered sharply, who the hell did you bring into our home? Her eyes jumped to the staircase. Her voice was small, barely audible. He's here. I tried to stop it, I really did, but I couldn't. The air in the room seemed to change, like the temperature dropped 10 degrees in an instant. Everything in me wanted to run up those stairs and confront whoever it was, but the look on her face stopped me. She didn't just look scared. She looked destroyed. What do you mean he's here? I asked again, struggling to keep my breath steady. Who is this guy? But before she could answer, the footsteps above us suddenly stopped. Total silence. The kind that presses against your eardrums and makes you feel like the house itself is holding its breath. I reached into my pocket, fumbling for my phone. My fingers could barely work. I was ready to call the cops, ready to get help. Then just like that, the lights cut out. Everything went black. Rachel screamed. And in that pitch-black room I felt it. A cold, foreign touch sliding across my arm just for a second. Like someone was standing right next to me. But no one was supposed to be there. We were supposed to be alone. The darkness was absolute. It swallowed the room whole. No shapes, no shadows, just an all-consuming black. I couldn't even see my own hand. Then Rachel screamed, loud, panicked, and sharp enough to send chills straight through me. My heart thudded against my ribs, my breath shallow and fast, the kind of fear that makes your whole body feel like it's caving in. Rachel? I yelled into the void, stumbling forward, reaching out blindly. But there was nothing. Just air. Cold, still air. And then, that sensation again. A touch. Icy fingers brushing the skin of my arm, slow, intentional, like whoever, or whatever, it was wanted me to feel it. My body locked up. I couldn't move. My legs refused to work, frozen in place by pure instinctual terror. Then came a whisper. Barely audible, like it floated right past my ear. Tyler. It wasn't Rachel. The voice was deeper, rougher, wrong. It sounded like it was trying to imitate a human voice but failing just enough to make my skin crawl. I flinched, backing up, fumbling for my phone, but before I could even reach my pocket, the lights sputtered back on, dim, flickering like the bulbs were fighting to stay alive. The room glowed with a sickly pale hue. Rachel was across the room, pressed up against the wall, her eyes wide with horror. Her mouth moved, but I couldn't hear a sound. And then, I saw him. At the bottom of the staircase, tucked partly in shadow, stood a figure. Tall. Too still. At first glance he looked like a man, but there was something off. Something wrong in the way he stood, too rigid, too quiet. His face was cast in shadow, but I could feel his gaze. Heavy. Direct. Like a weight pressing down on my chest. The air in the room dropped again. I could see Rachel's breath now, the chill creeping in like fog. She tried to mouth something, her lips moving quickly, eyes wide and pleading, but I couldn't understand her. I didn't need to. I already knew. The figure moved. One step. Then another. Slow, deliberate, like a predator closing in. I wanted to move, to scream, to do something, but I couldn't. I was trapped, pinned by something I couldn't see, couldn't name. Tyler? Rachel finally spoke, barely above a whisper. He's not going to stop. Not until he gets what he came for. I turned to her, desperate. What does he want? Her eyes dropped for a moment, to my chest, and then flicked back toward the figure. Her lips trembled. He wants you. That's when the thing stepped into the full glow of the light. And I saw its face. It was me. A twisted, hollow version of me, like a nightmare reflection. Cold, lifeless eyes stared back, a grin forming that didn't belong on any human face. I wasn't just looking at a stranger. I was looking at a monster wearing my face. I couldn't believe what I was looking at. That thing standing at the bottom of the stairs, it had my face. But not really. It was like someone had taken a picture of me and twisted it into something monstrous. The features were sharper, almost exaggerated, with hollow, pitch-black eyes that seemed to reach inside me. It was like staring at a version of myself from a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. The figure cocked its head to the side, studying me with eerie curiosity, like I was a specimen under glass. I wanted to look away, but I couldn't. There was something pulling me in. It wasn't just fear, it was dread. Heavy and cold, like standing on the edge of a cliff in a storm, knowing one gust of wind could send you over. Rachel? I whispered, my voice barely hanging on. What is that? She shook her head, tears streaking down her cheeks. I don't know, she said through trembling lips. It started after I got involved with Ethan. At first I thought it was just guilt. But then I started seeing it. In reflections. In my dreams. And now it's you. The thing stepped forward, slow and soundless, except for the creak of the wood beneath its feet. It moved with this disturbing grace, like it wasn't fully part of this world. My heartbeat was out of control. I took one shaky step back, and it matched me exactly. Like a mirror I couldn't break. Rachel, I said again, more urgently this time, how do we stop this? What does it want? She looked at me with the kind of despair that drains every ounce of hope. I tried, she cried. I tried everything. But it doesn't want me, Tyler. It wants you. It's been waiting for you. I turned back toward the figure. It was close now, too close. And then it smiled. It was my smile, but wrong. Wider. And then it spoke. Tyler, it whispered in my voice, but not quite. It sounded like two versions of me speaking in unison, one deep and cruel, the other hollow and cold. Come with me. It's time. I stumbled backward, nearly falling. Time for what? I shouted. What the hell are you? Its grin grew wider, stretching beyond what should be humanly possible. Its teeth, too white, too perfect, flashed under the dim light. You already know, it said. You're not supposed to be here. You've been living on borrowed time. A wave of nausea rolled over me. Borrowed time? The room tilted slightly, like the world itself was coming undone. My head spun. My legs felt weak. "You were supposed to die," it said, voice growing quieter, more intimate. "The night of the crash. But you didn't. You walked away. And now I'm here to collect." The crash. 2 years ago. I remembered the twisted metal, the fire, the paramedics saying I should have never survived. People called it a miracle. I believed it was luck. But now it felt like a mistake. "You can't outrun this," the thing hissed. "You belong to me." The lights flickered wildly, the room dimming with every pulse of the bulbs. The air thickened like something unseen was pressing against my chest. Then Rachel screamed, a sharp, terrified sound that cut through the dark. I turned toward her, but before I could move, the lights went out. And in that suffocating black, I heard my own voice, whispering, cold and final. "Time's up." I jolted upright, gasping like I'd just broken the surface of deep water. My chest heaved, heart hammering so hard it felt like it might tear its way out. I couldn't breathe right. The air around me was thick, dense with smoke and the sharp, metallic scent of something burning. My eyes darted around, struggling to make sense of the haze. Where was I? Shapes began to form through the blur. Shattered glass. Twisted metal. The steering wheel in my hands. I was still in the car. My windshield was spiderwebbed with cracks, and the front end of the vehicle looked like it had folded in on itself, slammed against something. Maybe a tree? I couldn't tell. I blinked hard, trying to separate what was real from what wasn't. The crash. The realization hit me like a second impact. It all came rushing back. That phone call from Ethan, me getting in the car, driving aimlessly, angry and distracted. The rain had been falling hard, blurring everything outside the windows. My mind was spinning with images of Rachel, of her lies, of the betrayal. I never made it home. And then, nothing. Just a blackout. Everything that had come after, the figure in the house, the twisted double of me, Rachel's terrified confessions, it had all been a dream. A terrifying, vivid nightmare fueled by stress, betrayal, and pain. But somehow, even knowing that didn't bring any comfort. I coughed hard, smoke stinging my lungs. My head felt like it was splitting open. I reached up and winced as my fingers met a sharp ache, wet with blood. I must have hit it in the crash. I didn't know how long I'd been out. The engine was still letting off steam, the hiss of boiling metal cutting through the silence. I had to move. I had to get out. My fingers fumbled at the door handle. It groaned when I pushed it open and I spilled out onto the wet grass. The cold air slapped my face, snapping my senses back to life, though my limbs felt slow and heavy, like I was walking through water. I forced myself upright. Behind me, the car sat broken and smoldering, half wrapped around a tree. I shouldn't have walked away from that. Looking at the wreckage, it felt less like survival and more like something else, something borrowed, stolen. The nightmare may have ended, but reality wasn't any kinder. The betrayal was still real. Rachel. Ethan. Everything they'd done. That was what I had to face now. Not some twisted doppelganger or haunted house, but the hollow truth of my own life coming apart. As I stood there in the gray dawn, my breath clouding in the air, my phone vibrated in my pocket. I pulled it out with a shaking hand. The screen was cracked but still lit. It was a call. From Ethan. His name glowed in the dim light, sharp and unwelcome. I didn't answer. I just stared at it, heart racing, the pain in my head pulsing in time with the ring. Because this time I wasn't dreaming. This was real. All of it. And as I stood there, surrounded by the wreckage, both of the car and my life, I realized something. The nightmare might be over. But the unraveling? That was just beginning. I stood there in the dim morning light, my phone still buzzing in my hand, Steve's name flashing across the cracked screen like a scar I couldn't ignore. The fog of the nightmare had lifted, but in its place was something heavier, the weight of truth. The phone rang until it stopped, leaving behind a silence that pressed against my chest harder than anything that dream could have conjured. I was alive. Somehow I'd walked away from the crash. I'd survived the haunting, twisted dream. But now I was back in the real world, the one where my wife was cheating on me with my boss, my marriage was in pieces, and the possibility of a child, one that might not even be mine, hung in the air like a ticking bomb. I leaned against the crumpled car, struggling to hold my thoughts together. My mind raced back to that last conversation with Ethan, Rachel's fearful words, and the nightmare reflection of myself. Everything felt like it was unraveling and I was stuck in the middle with no clue how to pull any of it back together. Then the phone buzzed again. A text. "We need to talk, Tyler. Please call me back. There's more you need to know." More? What could possibly be left to say? The man had already destroyed my marriage. Now he wanted to explain? My grip tightened around the phone. Anger boiled just beneath the surface. But before I could do anything, I heard sirens in the distance. Faint but growing louder. Someone must have seen the wreckage or heard the crash. I slipped the phone back into my pocket and stepped away from the car. The adrenaline was fading fast and I could feel the ache of every injury, every bruise. The lights appeared through the trees, flashes of red and blue bouncing off the wet asphalt. But then, another vibration. Not a call this time. A notification. I hesitated, hand still in my pocket, afraid to check it. Another message from Steve? Or worse, from Rachel? I finally pulled out the phone and looked. It wasn't from either of them. It was an email. No name, just a long string of random numbers. And the subject line stopped me cold. Truth about Rachel. Open ASAP. I stared at it for a moment, pulse quickening. The cold that had crept into me earlier returned with a vengeance. My thumb hovered over the screen, then I opened it. Tyler. You don't know me, but I know exactly what's been going on. Rachel isn't who you think she is. What happened with Ethan? That's just the beginning. She's been keeping secrets, ones darker than anything you've uncovered so far. I've been watching them for months, and you need to hear the truth. Meet me tonight at 8 p.m. I'll send you the location soon. Trust me, your life depends on it. I read the message twice. Then again. It didn't feel like a joke. It didn't sound like some troll playing with my emotions. It was too specific. Too calm. Too real. Your life depends on it. I felt my skin crawl. The sirens were now screaming around me. Emergency lights painted the road in red and blue. The paramedics were getting out, calling out to me, but I barely heard them. I was still staring at that message. Somewhere between betrayal, the crash, and the dream, I had stepped into something far darker than I could have imagined. And I had no idea what I was walking into next. The flashing lights painted everything in red and blue, but I barely noticed. I couldn't tear my eyes away from the screen. That email. Jennifer isn't who you think she is. The words were seared into my thoughts. I read it again. And again. The affair, the lies, they were only part of the story. Now there was a suggestion of something darker. Deeper. Like I'd only scratched the surface of something I wasn't meant to find. A paramedic appeared in front of me, pulling me back into reality. Sir, can you hear me? Are you all right? I gave a stiff nod, still gripping the phone. Yeah. I'm okay, I said, even though I didn't feel okay. My body was in shock, but my mind was somewhere far away. They started their routine, checking for injuries, asking questions, but it was like background noise. I answered without thinking. The crash felt like it had happened to someone else. What mattered now was that email. That warning. Your life depends on it. I glanced over at my car. Or what was left of it. The twisted frame, the shattered windshield. It didn't even look like a car anymore. Just wreckage. Like a reflection of what everything in my life had become. When they were done and said I could go without needing a hospital trip, they asked if I needed help getting somewhere. I shook my head. I didn't want to sit in an ER under fluorescent lights, going over the same thoughts. I needed space. I needed to think. Then my phone buzzed again. A new message. This time from Rachel. Where are you? Please come home. We need to talk. I can explain everything, I swear. I stared at her name, thumb hovering above the screen. A dozen things ran through my mind. Anger. Confusion. Betrayal. Part of me wanted to go straight to her and demand the truth. Scream if I had to. But there was something else now, something I couldn't shake. That email had changed everything. There was a new feeling settling in, one that made my skin crawl. And just as I started to slide the phone into my pocket, another message came through. Same unknown number. Don't go home. Not yet. You're being watched. Wait for my next message. Trust me. I froze. Watched. I looked around instinctively. Just the paramedics and a couple of cops wrapping things up. But suddenly I felt eyes on me. Not theirs. Something else. My skin prickled. The back of my neck burned. One of the paramedics asked again, "Are you sure you're good to head out on your own?" "I'll be fine," I said quickly, voice tight. I needed to leave. I couldn't go back home. Not now. Not after reading that. I didn't know what to believe, but something told me whoever sent those messages knew more than I did, and maybe more than Rachel ever would admit. I told the officers I had someone coming to pick me up. It wasn't true, but I needed to get out from under the flashing lights and out of their questions. I needed to move. To think. As I walked away from the wreckage, my phone buzzed once more. Same number. Tonight. 8 p.m. I'll send the location soon. Don't speak to Rachel before then. She's dangerous. Dangerous. That word echoed through my mind. Dangerous? This wasn't just about lies anymore. Or infidelity. Something else was at play. Something I didn't understand. I thought the worst was behind me, that I'd already survived the nightmare. But now, it felt like the nightmare was just getting started. I kept walking, no real direction in mind, just trying to piece together what my life had become. My head throbbed, not just from the crash, but from the growing weight of confusion and dread pressing in on me. The phone in my pocket felt heavier with every step, like it was carrying more than messages, like it held answers I wasn't sure I was ready for. Rachel is dangerous. That line echoed in my head over and over. I'd been furious, hurt beyond anything I'd ever known, about the affair, the lies, the pregnancy. But dangerous? That was something different. Something darker. And now I was being told not to speak to her, not to even go near her? But who was this person reaching out to me? How did they know so much? How long had they been watching? None of it made sense, and yet, something deep inside told me this wasn't a joke. The unease that settled in my gut wasn't letting go. I wandered through the empty streets, the early evening air biting through my jacket. Every sound felt exaggerated: footsteps, engines in the distance, the rustle of wind through alleyways. It all made me feel like I wasn't alone. Like someone, or something, was out there just beyond my vision. Then my phone buzzed again. I stopped cold. Be ready. I'm sending the location now. Seconds later, a new message popped up, an address. It was nearby, tucked in the industrial part of town. A warehouse. The kind of place you drive past without thinking. The kind of place that didn't ask questions. I stared at the address. Everything in me screamed that I should turn around. That I shouldn't follow this lead. But I had to know. I needed to know. I couldn't keep pretending that the pieces of my life would somehow fit back together on their own. So I started walking. The warehouse loomed ahead of me just before 8 p.m. It looked abandoned, quiet, lifeless, except for a single dim bulb glowing above the rusted door. The silence was deafening. My pulse pounded in my ears as I stood outside, gathering whatever courage I had left. I stepped toward the entrance. Then, my phone buzzed. Another message. Don't panic. Just listen. Before I could process it, I heard something behind me. A soft rustle. Footsteps. I spun around, adrenaline flaring. And then I saw her. Rachel. Standing just a few steps away. Her eyes wide, her face pale and streaked with what looked like tears. She looked broken. Scared. But also intense. Like she was holding something back. Tyler, she whispered, voice trembling. You shouldn't be here. You don't know what you've stepped into. I took a step back, every nerve in my body screaming. What are you doing here? Were you following me? How did you know? She moved closer. You need to come with me. Now. Before it's too late. Too late for what? I snapped. You lie to me, you cheat on me, and now I'm supposed to believe you're trying to protect me? Her face hardened. Something passed over her expression. Something I couldn't read. Tyler, listen to me. You're in danger. This is bigger than us. Bigger than anything you know. Before I could respond, her eyes darted over my shoulder. I turned. A shadow stepped out from the warehouse doorway. Not Ethan. Not anyone I recognized. Tall. Calm. Dressed in dark clothes. And holding something in one hand. Rachel, the man said evenly, voice low but laced with threat. You've done enough. Don't make this worse. Rachel's breath caught. She grabbed my arm, pulling me toward her. Tyler, please, she whispered, her grip tightening. We have to go. Now. But I couldn't move. Because the man raised his hand into the light. He was holding a gun. The moment that man stepped forward, everything shifted. His presence wasn't just threatening, it was controlled. His hand rested on the gun like it belonged there, like it had been there countless times before. This wasn't some panicked thug. He was calm. Intentional. Like he'd been waiting for us. Rachel's grip tightened around my arm, her fingers digging in. I could feel the tension trembling through her hand. Tyler, she whispered, barely audible, don't look at him. We have to go. Right now. But I couldn't look away. There was something about this man, this Daniel, that made my skin crawl. It wasn't just the weapon or the darkness in his eyes. It was the way he looked at me. Like he already knew who I was. Like this whole thing had been planned from the start. He tilted his head slightly, the faintest smirk curling his lips. Rachel always did have a talent for landing in the deep end, he said. But you, Tyler, you weren't supposed to be part of this. Part of what? I said, my voice shaky but loud enough. Who the hell are you? He smiled wider, his eyes never leaving mine. You can call me Daniel, he said casually. But names aren't important. What matters is that you're standing in the middle of something you don't understand. I backed away instinctively and Rachel moved with me, her hand still latched onto my arm. "Tyler, please," she begged, her voice cracking. "You don't know what's happening. If we don't leave now, we won't get another chance." But I wasn't ready to walk away. Not yet. Not without answers. "No," I snapped. "You owe me the truth. I've been lied to, cheated on, dragged through hell, and now I'm being told my own wife is dangerous? I deserve to know what's going on." Her face twisted in pain, and for a moment she looked like the woman I'd once loved. Shaken. Lost. Human. "I didn't mean for this to happen," she said, voice trembling. "I thought I could manage it, thought I could keep you safe. But I was wrong." Daniel let out a low chuckle. "Still trying to spin it, huh?" he said. "You really think he's going to believe you after everything? You've been playing both sides for months, Rachel." "What are you talking about?" I barked. He lifted the gun, not pointing it, just holding it up like a warning. "She got herself involved with people who don't let things go. She thought she could work both angles. Keep her life, her lies, her secrets all tidy and separate. But it doesn't work that way." I turned to her, my voice rising. "Tell me the truth. All of it. Right now." Tears spilled from her eyes and she looked like she was breaking from the inside. "It's gone too far. I thought I could fix it, but I can't. Tyler, we have to leave before." "Before what?" I snapped. "Before he kills us?" "No," she whispered, her voice barely there. "Before they come." The smirk vanished from Daniel's face. His eyes shifted toward the road behind us. "You should have listened to her," he said, his voice suddenly hard. "Because now they're already here." A roar echoed through the night, a low, growling engine speeding toward us. Tires on wet pavement. Fast. My heart dropped. Rachel grabbed my arm again, her panic spiraling. "We have to run. Now." The warehouse door behind Daniel burst open with a loud bang, and two more figures stepped out into the light. They moved with precision, fast, silent, like they'd done this before. I couldn't see their faces, just shadows. But their presence hit like a wave. Daniel glanced back, then returned his gaze to me, calm as ever. "Looks like you're out of time." My chest was pounding, adrenaline screaming through me. There was no way out, but in that split-second moment I grabbed Rachel's hand and whispered the only word I could think of. "Run." And we did. We took off into the alley, our footsteps slamming the ground, our breath ragged in our throats. Behind us, Daniel shouted something, but I didn't turn back. Then, gunfire. Sharp cracks slicing the air, bullets striking just inches from where we ran. We didn't stop. Not when my lungs burned. Not when Rachel stumbled beside me. Not when the night seemed to close in on every side. Whatever this was, whatever she had dragged us into, it was darker than anything I could have imagined. And now we were in it. Running for our lives. We ran until my legs felt like they'd give out. The alley behind us twisted through shadows and darkness, every turn taking us further from that warehouse, from Daniel, from whatever nightmare I had walked straight into. I could still hear echoes behind us, shouts, movement, but for now we were hidden. Breathless, I stopped. My lungs burned and my heart pounded like it was trying to break free from my chest. Rachel stood beside me, gasping for air, her face pale and streaked with tears. She looked wrecked, shaken, and scared, really scared. But behind all that panic I could still see it, that shadow in her eyes. The part of her I didn't know. And I wasn't going any further without answers. I turned to her, chest still heaving. "Enough," I said, my voice hoarse. "Tell me what's going on, Rachel. No more running. No more lies. What the hell have you done?" She looked around like she might try to bolt again, but there was nowhere to go. Not this time. Her shoulders slumped and she stared at the ground. When she finally spoke, her voice was small, trembling. "I was working with them," she said. "With Daniel. And the others." I just stood there stunned. "Working how?" She wiped at her face, trying to hold herself together. "It started when you were gone on those long trips. At first it was just to cover bills. Extra cash. But then, they offered more. And I said yes." "What did they offer?" I asked, my voice low and tight. She hesitated. Then the truth spilled out. "I was an escort, Tyler. I sold myself. And Steve, your boss, he was one of my clients." For a second I couldn't breathe. The world tilted sideways. Everything, the late nights, the distance, the guilt she tried to hide, it all snapped into place. "You were sleeping with him for money?" I said, each word hitting like a brick. She nodded, barely able to meet my eyes. "I never meant for you to find out. I thought I could keep it separate. That you'd never know." "And the baby?" I asked, though I already feared the answer. I don't know, she whispered. It could be yours. It could be his. I never planned any of this. I was going to disappear before it all came crashing down. But then, you came home early. And that was it. I felt like I'd been hollowed out. The woman I loved, the life I built, it was all a carefully constructed lie. A performance. And I'd been too blind to see the truth until it blew up in my face. Rachel stepped toward me, her voice desperate. I'm sorry, Tyler. I didn't mean for it to end like this. I was just trying to survive. I turned away from her. I didn't have the strength to yell, or cry, or ask why. Don't, I said quietly. Just, don't. We stood there in silence, two people who once shared everything, now broken in a dark alley, surrounded by things we couldn't undo. In the distance I could hear the footsteps again. Voices. They were still coming. But I didn't care. Whatever came next, it couldn't hurt more than this. I filed for divorce a few weeks after that night. I didn't wait for explanations or apologies. I walked away and never looked back. She tried to reach out, said she wanted to explain everything, maybe make it right, but there was no saving what we had. There was never anything real to begin with. As for Steve, I quit. Left the company without a word. Last I heard, he lost everything. Honestly, I didn't care. But the nightmares? They stayed. That twisted version of myself from the dream, the shadow that whispered time's up, it lingered in my head like smoke that wouldn't clear. The betrayal, the lies, the fear, it didn't vanish when she left. It followed me. So I got help. Therapy. Long talks I never thought I'd have. I'm still working through it, still unpacking all the layers of anger and pain I carried around for years. But I'm getting better. Little by little. There's no perfect ending to a story like this. No neat bow to wrap it all up. But I've learned something. Sometimes, the person you think knows you best can be the one who does the most damage. And sometimes, survival isn't about beating the monster. It's about living through the wreckage it leaves behind. I'm not who I was before all of this. I probably never will be. But I'm still here. And I'm moving forward.